This is Sybert signing into Red Alert 3 on the map Industrial Strength for the win, number 31 Grand Finals. That's right, folks. It's Grand Finals, best of 7 time. One of these guys advanced from the winner's bracket, so he'll be kicking it off with 1 point. And that man is on the left side of the map representing teammates. This is Vindies. Give a cheer, give a holla. Because hollering from the other side of the map, our Cyan allied player representing himself and possibly TNG. I don't know if that clan is still around. This is Zokker. Making his way through the losers bracket, defeating players such as Technique and Yui. He already lost to Vindies previously in the tournament. Lost 0-2. Vindies took it 2-0. That was in the winner's bracket quarters. It's been a little bit of time since then. Now, Vindies coming in from the winner's bracket finals does have that 1 point advantage, meaning he only needs to take 3 games in this series to make it happen. And Zokker, he's got to go the full distance. He needs all 4 wins to make this work. Now, Industrial Strength, we've got the garage in the middle, and anytime you've got a mirror matchup, if one side grabs the garage, unless everything is based in aircraft and infantry or Navy, that garage can be such a huge benefit to whatever side grabs it, again, in a mirrored matchup where one player just gets free repairs all the time on their vehicles and the other player doesn't. Oil derricks have been grabbed, and coming into it, both of these guys are tournament champions. Again, just to set the stage, for those of you who may not know, Zokker, he's a guy who's got a bit more pedigree behind him, I would say. Yeah, they're both tournament champions. Vindies a bit more recently. Zokker, a bit of an old-school player. And he's not necessarily in tip-top shape. He is not necessarily in his final form. I would say Vindies has probably been playing a lot more matches lately, although maybe Zokker got on some huge training regiment, which no, nobody trains for Red Alert 3. That's ridiculous. At any rate, Vindies is probably going to be the favorite coming into this series. He already defeated Zokker 2-0. He's been doing pretty well, and the garage will go down. Very nice by Zokker. Going to be able to clean that up. And Zokker, he's had a reputation in the past as being a bit of a turret pusher. Now, in this particular case, interestingly enough, as I mentioned that, Vindies is actually the one going to be turret pushing. And in this case, I don't know if it's actually better to really switch targets because he's not going to be able to get the kill on that multi-gunner turret. If Zokker gets the first shot off, then there's almost no, there literally is no way that Vindies can win with an equal multi-gunner turret. So in the best case, maybe you try to focus down the power plant. Maybe he doesn't even get the power plant, though. If he had a Vindicator, then he could have taken down, or really, any additional units to support, then he probably could have taken down the multi-gunner turret. But as it stands, I don't know why he even changed targets. It might have been an auto-targeting thing, but he should have just gone for the power plant. At any rate, Vindies unpacks his MCV, heads out onto the water, going to be taking a bit more damage as well. Drops a power plant in the middle of the map. Again, this could be a little bit dangerous if he ends up having to fight around that and then ends up losing it. It could be a bit of a factor. Multi-gunner turret jumps inside with a Peacekeeper as it is going to be getting laser locked down by that Javelin Trooper, eliminated rather quickly. And Zokker dropped this wall pretty darn earlier in the map, but this will buy him a little bit of time against this force pressing in. It's not like some sort of ultimate defense, but it gives him the extra 10-15 seconds that he needs to be able to get through this. And now, Vindies is going to be a little bit bottlenecked. If there was, a couple of Peacekeepers here or some multi-gunner turrets, that would have been absolutely sick. But again, that wall just buys a little bit of time for Zokker. Maybe not a lot of time. Probably not as much time as Zokker would have liked, but in this case, a little bit of time. And Vindies is going to be getting his MCV chased. Of course, he doesn't want to stay out on the water against 2 Riptides. That's going to be a little bit dangerous. While on the other side of the map, Prospector does go down, and Vindies is going to be doing a little bit of damage, able to target down that ore refinery, laser lock it down, and that means his MCV on the other side of the map is going to be getting targeted down, continue to take even more and more damage, and at this point, it's pretty much guaranteed to die. Maybe if he had the garage, it would be able to survive, but he's going to need some pretty good... he can't really have anything. He's going to need good DPS, but, at that point, he just didn't have the units there in the vicinity able to deal with that One Javelin Trooper, I guess, laser locks down that Peacekeeper, able to clean it up, and goodbye. Refinery will end up going down there as Vindies forces it to be sold off. And Vindies losing his MCV seems to be the theme for him in this tournament. He lost it quite a bit against Andre, and now in another AVA, he's going to be losing it again. Zokker does still have his own MCV, which means he can always retreat out to the water, where, of course, infantry are notoriously bad at actually going. Only a couple of infantry can actually go out on the water, and dogs don't do too well. Engineers are pretty easy to deal with as well. He could potentially go up to that Tier 2, try to get out a spy or something like that, but really, Vindies is going to be relegated to mostly living on the land. He will be able to clean up this Peacekeeper inside of that multi-gunner turret. Not too much of trouble there, just because he did utilize that Riot Shield from that Peacekeeper, and he's going to be able to push Zokker back at least a little bit, but will he actually be able to win this game? I'm more inclined to think no, unless there's like an airfield or something that I've missed. But even then, Zokker has a fair bit of time, and of course he can just sit right on the edge and micro with Riptides, and he doesn't even have to do like any particularly intense micro. He can pretty much just sit on the edge of the water and then just use Riptides and then pull them back to the naval yard, get repairs, and then do battle with whichever Riptides are at full HP. Bringing out the Prospector just to get a couple of extra shots from those Peacekeepers, able to clean them up. Should go ahead and pull that guy back for some repairs. And Vindies has almost like painted himself into a corner, as they say. Zokker, I mean, he's got two pretty much untouchable power plants. He's got Riptides running defense. He's got two refineries, so that's standard economy just running fine for him. And Vindies, he hasn't tapped out. Is he just going crazy engineer numbers? Like, he can't do anything else. That's pretty much the only thing he can do, but engineers are just so easy to kill. Maybe if you went like 10,000 dogs, and then literally 10,000 dogs and like crashed Zokker's computer? Like, maybe? That's an idea. 500, 1,000, 1,500 credits wasted on engineers that did nothing. Vindies is, he's still in the game, and by that I mean, like, he hasn't left yet. Maybe he doesn't realize that Zokker has an MCV and a base out here? Can Javelin Troopers, like, swim, and when they go out on water, they suddenly become, like, super tanks? Is that what is this, like, a modded game, and I don't actually know this? Vindies has been defeated. GG goes down, as Zokker will tie things up 1-1 and can continue this series into game number 2, but of course, the score being 1-1 means that we're not going to see a shutout, not going to see a clean sweep, whichever way you look at it. And now both of these guys, as I get a phone call, do need 3 points to win this. Let's jump into game number 2, which takes us to Cabana Republic for another AVA, and on the left side, as our Cyan allies, he won that last game. Can he continue the streak? This is Zokker. And on the right side, our yellow allied player representing teammates, this is Vindies. So AVA polarizes people. Lots of people don't actually like it. A lot of people hate seeing AVA finals in tournaments. But we've got an AVA final, so we are going to take a look. We're going to cast it. And there actually hasn't been a straight-up AVA finals in like 5 or 6 months as far as Premier 1v1 tournaments go. Because you got to think back, for the win 30, you had you had Fordell versus Jeremo. For the win 29, you had Vindies versus Fordell. Fordell played random. And then the Christmas tournament, Yui versus Kimi no Uji. And then the charity tournament before that, I mean, that was the last time we saw an Allied v Allied finals, although there have been lots of AVA matches since then. Pretty high-level matches all around the place. Wow, Zokker, he's going to be feeling really good after that Game 1 win. He opens up Game 2 with an engineer kill, which is kind of like the delayed dog, where the Peacekeeper gets split off a little bit, which potentially could have happened against Andre. I believe I mentioned that in the winner's bracket final. By the way, I don't think I ever explained in this series why the losers bracket final didn't really happen. Zokker had some problems figuring out what the right settings are for playing games, and so the other loser bracket finalist wasn't too happy, decided to forfeit out, and it's a bit unfortunate that that's the way it had to go down. In this case, we get an AVA final, and then instead of potentially like an AVE final or something like that. So maybe it would have turned out a bit differently. It's hard to say for sure. Airfield going down for Zokker. He's going to be grouping up some infantry in the middle of the map, but he's got his 2 Vindicators. He's got his MCV. It's turret pushing time, baby. And both of these guys going for the turret push. Now, Vindies, he's just got the naval yards. So when it comes to actually killing off multi-gunner turrets, the 2 Vindicators do pretty well at it, considering that they can just snipe them down. But when it comes to consistent DPS, the Riptides are more where it's at, just because you have to run back home with your Vindicators every time you want to bomb more stuff. Now, 3 Vindicators is a pretty healthy amount of DPS. You can do a pretty fair amount of damage to the MCV. Not a super ton, but you can also clean up Riptides rather easily. Engineer, oh my word. Oh my word. Sells it off at the last second. Doesn't actually get the kill on the Engineer. That Engineer is still alive. Could capture a power plant, or at least force the sell-off. And of course, when you utilize that Engineer like that, you can just knock down some walls, use the Engineer, and then force your opponent to sell off the structure while you focus on something else with your Javelin Troopers. And really, from this point forward, something has to happen. Like, something's got to give for Zokker. He needs to make something happen. While he's losing all of this stuff back home, his airfield was forced to be rebuilt. He's lost a refinery, the Prospector as well, another power plant, goodbye second refinery. He's got an airfield on the right side of the map, which is a nice start, and he's going to start bombing away at the stuff of Vindies, but he needs a standing army. He needs to deal with the Riptides of his opponent. The problem is, if he tries to split up his Vindicators, he's not going to be able to do anything on this side of the map. Yeah, he might be able to snipe down Riptides on the other side of the map, but is he actually going to be doing anything in the long term of this game? Triple Riptide going to be targeting down that command hub, not allowing anything to go up. And of course, Vindies' next kind of directive, his next objective even, is to just get up probably a refinery. As long as he's got that. Actually, I guess he lost both of his power plants, so I guess his actual first objective is to get a power plant down and then go for that refinery. No, wait, never mind. He's still got double refinery. He's fine. For some reason, I was thinking that both of these guys lost both of their refineries. And Zokker, his primary directive is try to get some sort of eco, because sitting on one oil derrick means that you won't be able to do all that much. Loses 1 Vindicator, but he managed to get down a multi-gunner turret, going to be forcing the MCV to pack up and run away, and this allows Vindies to try to jump in here with his Javelin Troopers to deal with this while the multi-gunner turret is getting focused down, because of course if you kill off the multi-gunner turret, then that's nice, but if you try to change target to clean up the Javelin Troopers, then if the MCV gets unpacked, suddenly you have to deal with the multi-gunner turret again. So Zokker, he could have changed targets. Yeah, maybe he would have gotten a kill, but I totally understand why he decided not to. Freezing down the oil derrick will be nice, but he doesn't actually get it, unfortunately, for Zokker. It thaws out, and that means he just wasted his cryo shot. He's not going to have that on cooldown for a little bit longer, and that, of course, means anytime you fire yours off, you have to be thinking in the back of your mind, all right, I'm playing an AVA. The other guy definitely has a cryo shot as well. When is he going to be using his? And this might be the opportune moment for that. Very few Peacekeepers actually out on the ground. The barracks does get shot down as 2 multi-gunner turrets are established on the front lines, and they are going to be getting focused down pretty darn quickly, but again, multi-gunner turrets are pretty healthy, and against this few Peacekeepers, you don't necessarily need 2 multi-gunner turrets firing all the time, but the shots that they absorb from those Peacekeepers allow the rest of your units to actually tear through all of those units in a nice lineup of Javelin Troopers, but the pull is just in time as Vindies, demonstrating some pretty darn nice control, will be able to target down all of the Vindicators. All 3 of them get eliminated, and that is it. Loses his MCV, loses the Vindicators, nothing left. Zokker will drop out of this game. GG. And game number 2 goes to Vindies, taking him up 2-1 against Zokker. But this is a best of 7. Zokker has already shown that he can go toe-to-toe against Vindies. And yeah, you could kind of classify game number 1 as Zokker more of capitalized on the mistakes of Vindies and the overzealous nature of Vindies, but still, you can't just capitalize on your opponent's mistakes. You have to have, to some degree, some sort of skill to back it up, and in game number 1, we saw that from Zokker. Game number 2, not so much. If Vindies maybe hadn't have been so aggressive with his units, if he would have tried to fight out the kind of like mid-map war with multi-gunner turrets, Zokker would have been in probably a much better situation, maybe even a kind of game-winning situation with those Vindicators instead of the Riptides, but Vindies knew, he was like, hey, I only got these Riptides, I can't necessarily fight the multi-gunner turret war, I'm just going to skip it, I'm going to drive to the other side of the map, and I'm just going to set up camp, and of course that put Zokker in crisis management mode. Can he bring it back in game number 3? Let's jump right in. Which takes us to Fire Island, and spawning on the left side, the bottom left corner, our Cyan allies, this is Zokker. And in the top right corner, up 2-1 in this best of 7, representing teammates, can he take another tournament, or will he fall to another old boy? This is Vindies. He's the young blood of these two, going up against Zokker, the Turret King, who hasn't quite been the Turret King in this series. I don't know about the rest of the tournament, but in this series, he hasn't quite been the Turret King. However, Double Rack's going to be coming out. Both of these guys pumping out lots of Peacekeepers. And an AVA, Double Racks is pretty much always an option. It's always something that can end up working, but in this case, well, how many Peacekeepers do they decide to commit? There's always that choice of, you know, which old Derek do you want to go for? Zokker goes for the south one, Vindies goes for the north one. Sometimes you see players actually split one barracks on each side and try to kind of shut down their opponent's barracks. Whichever side you double commit to is usually the better side, just because you're going to win and against single barracks production. But from there, you have all of these questions of, like, what do you do with your Peacekeepers? Vindies is going to try to push pretty far forward, and he's going to be potentially getting himself a couple of free kills if Zokker is not careful about how his Peacekeepers line up. Overall, Zokker does have a few more Peacekeepers, and if he's able to catch out Vindies, you know, divide and conquer style, he could totally crush through this early game and then potentially lead into a big charge forward and really take down Vindies. Riot Shield Micro is, of course, going to be very important, but Vindies is starting to carve through some of Zokker. Zokker still has superior numbers. However, again, with Riot Shield Micro, may end up turning more towards Vindies' favor as he's starting to get some nice surrounds and get some nice, just constant DPS out on these units. Zokker switching the last couple of Peacekeepers not out of Riot Shield mode. He potentially could have done a bit more damage there. It's so hard to say, though, and Vindies actually comes out ahead in that engagement one way or the other. The reinforcements helping out there a little bit. I'm not actually sure. I mean, I'm assuming Zokker maybe? Like, could Zokker have actually microed that significantly better? Maybe? I don't know enough about allies. I don't actually play enough allies to know how much of that is realistic. Maybe there was a little bit of lag there. Maybe there was a little bit of problems. Maybe Zokker was just looking somewhere else. But the focus fire from Vindies pretty darn good. Even Riot Shield's not helping very much. Single dog from Zokker going to be just out spotting, and triple Apollo, single Vindicator into Cryocopters would not be surprising. There's the Vindicator coming out for... Wait a second. Nope, that's just Tier 1. We're still fine. Just Tier 1 from Zokker. Not super fast Tier 2 or anything like that. However, Vindies, he's going to be waiting. He's going to be waiting and watching for some sort of an opportunity to open up this wall and start doing a bit of damage. And of course, that's what these Guardian Apollos are about. Trying to lock down this airfield, trying to keep any Vindicators from getting out across the map. And Zokker, this is how he earned the name. Is he going to be able to do it, though? Of course, with the Allied MCV, you get a huge amount of build radius. And will he live up to the Turret King name? Goodbye, barracks. It immediately goes down, and that means these Apollos are taking some free damage from that Javelin Trooper. Flies almost directly back over that Javelin Trooper. And Zokker needs to make sure that he doesn't lose those Apollos for no reason. Vindicators once again coming forward, forcing the sell-off of that multi-gunner turret, able to snipe down the barracks as well. No, actually not able to snipe down the barracks, but get it so low on HP that just a couple of moments with that laser lock will be able to deal with it quite easily. And both of those Javelin Troopers end up getting taken out as more Vindicators going to be coming forward, and Vindies does still survive, but continues to snipe down those multi-gunner turrets. The barracks still out on the line here for Vindies, going to be pumping out constant reinforcements, and Zokker is going to have to deal with the 4 Vindicators of his opponent at some point. 2 Javelin Troopers, maybe not quite enough to deal with this many Vindicators. He needs the Apollos in here. He will be able to clean up one of the Vindicators quite without too much trouble, but he loses again. He loses the Javelin Troopers for that, and now he's going to start bombing away at that con yard. Will open up potential more weaknesses for him to exploit. Another Vindicator going down. Vindies is crumbling. Zokker is starting to push his way through. He's got the multi-gunner turret advantage. He's killed the barracks on the front line, and now he's going to be forcing the MCV out to the water, forcing it away from the front lines, opening up even more space for Zokker. But Zokker is going to be at that economic disadvantage, and if he doesn't make something happen right here, right now, he is going to eventually fall behind, and of course that's talking about the long term. However, he does have an opportunity to clean things up right here, right now. Splash damage from the bombs, not quite enough. As cryo shot firing off, I'm not sure exactly where, potentially forcing some units to move. And once again, Vindies, he's kind of reestablished himself. He is going to be dropping down. I guess that cryo shot is actually going to be from Zokker to try to lock down that turret, but can he actually clean it up? Yep, there's going to be the Vindicator. There's the sell-off, though. Vindies gets the full refund. And the Vindicator, he's just waiting around. He is going to be taking a bit of damage from that Javelin Trooper. Kills it off quite easily. Vindies sells off the airfield as well. And Zokker doesn't actually have the power to keep that multi-gunner turret online. He does take a little bit more damage than he would have liked to, considering it was offline for the first couple of seconds. But after that, goodbye Peacekeepers. And of course, multi-gunner turrets trade pretty well with Peacekeepers. Not quite well enough for the Peacekeepers to actually clean them up. Zokker's starting to lose his ground control. He lost that small clump of infantry that he has, and since he doesn't have a barracks for constant reinforcements, Vindies is starting to push back. And again, with that triple refinery, Vindies has a little bit of space to give as far as the economy and still be able to at least keep steady with Zokker's production. Now, the nice thing is Zokker didn't lose the airfield, and of course that bought him some time because Vindies had to rebuild that airfield, has to rebuild all of the aircraft on it as well. But Zokker hasn't been able to do a whole lot with that time, considering that, yeah, the turret push is nice, but if the turret push is not supported by anything else, then it's really hard to actually do anything. Ooh, free engineer for Zokker. He's the king of killing free engineers, I guess, in this particular series. But again, if you got a turret push and you've got nothing to support it, then anytime your MCV is on the move is really huge downtime. And for Zokker, it's like, yeah, you got the MCV, and okay, yeah, you were able to drop down one missile turret, or multi-gunner turret, but if that one multi-gunner turret doesn't do absolute wonders for you, you've got not much of a backup plan to fall back on. You don't have much of anything. And in this case, it's going to be the naval yard. Airfield is guarded by a multi-gunner turret, sells it off, going to be reestablishing it in the north, out on the water where it's nice and safe from Javelin Troopers. I think that range is a bit too far, even for a heroic Javelin Trooper. Vindies decides he wants to make a donation to the Zokker donation fund of dead Vindies units, and Zokker is looking to be a little bit sneaky in the bottom right corner of the map. There's going to be the cryoblast firing off once again. Cryo shot, probably. I think cryo shot is the tier 1 version. I can never remember. It's cryo shot, I think, then blast, then Armageddon, or cryogeddon, I guess, is technically what it's called. And going to be starting to work away on that refinery. Of course, being able to get out tier 2 would be pretty darn big for either one of these players. And the Prospector actually goes down, doesn't manage to get any additional kills off, which is a bit troublesome for Zokker. It's always nice if you manage to get a kill with your Prospector. If you manage to actually murder one of the infantry, then sometimes you can kind of work away with it. Because if it's only a Javelin Trooper, then the Peacekeepers that come off from the buildings dying or being sold off can kill off that Javelin Trooper, and it's quite nice. Javelin Trooper starting to get cleaned up, just a couple of Peacekeepers left, and that is not going to be enough for Vindies to really push forward and do anything else. Vindies, on the other hand, he needs to make do with what he's got. He drops down an additional refinery, which actually kind of brings him up to 4 in a surprising fashion. I would have assumed Zokker would have been able to kill at least one of them off, but no, Zokker loses an additional refinery, putting him just on the 1 refinery, 0 oil derrick income, which is pretty bad. You really, if you want to avoid being on 1 refinery, you do that at pretty much all costs. 2 refinery is all right. That gives you a fair amount of income to work with, but ooh, and Zokker still has his multi-gunner turret back in his main base. That Peacekeeper kind of got ejected in a funny way. Unfortunately, Zokker in that low power mode for an additional amount of time. He does have a pretty scary naval force, but this naval force becomes significantly less scary as soon as you move away from the water. I mean, no more torpedoes for Riptides. You suddenly don't have quite as much power in your forces, and even the multi-gunner turret's going to be getting locked down by the weapon jammer of the hydrofoil quite easily, and this refinery down here is pretty much the only bastion of hope that Zokker has. If he can reestablish something else up here, then yeah, that'll be pretty nice. A couple of bombs going to be getting dropped off by Vindies, and well, that MCV hasn't quite loaded properly. Hydrofoil's getting taken out, it looks like, by the Riptides. And Vindies is down to 3 refinery, 1 oil derrick, which still gives him a lot of options as far as actually producing units. And is he actually going for tier 2? Is Cryoblast going to be firing off? Hydrofoils need to get themselves, well, unfortunately there's only 1, which means it won't actually be able to put out enough DPS to actually deal with those Vindicators. One of them at about half HP will still survive, and Vindies is like, I see you down in the corner there. I've got my own command hub, and of course that means that Vindies can go for any sort of attack that he wants. The kind of downside of being just Riptide-based when the Riptides are out on the water is that you can't actually get a barracks to put any Javelin Troopers inside of that Riptide, so your anti-air options on the ground are extremely limited. Vindies' heroic squad of infantry moving forward to deal with that potential refinery, with that expansion, and potentially will end up getting crushed by the Prospector. 1 Peacekeeper, 2 Peacekeeper, 3 and 4. Zokker gets it all, gets himself a heroic Peacekeeper for basically nothing. Vindicator's going to be coming in for Vindies, able to target down the multi-gunner turret of Zokker, and even now, Zokker doesn't have a whole lot left. He's just got this one hole of, you know, this one little hole that he's hiding in. And this is kind of do or die. It's double airfield now for Vindies. If he can't deal with the Riptides, that would be one thing. But Vindicators are pretty... Oh, my word, it's actually triple airfield. This is a little bit silly from Vindies. But, of course, Vindies are, you know, pretty darn good at shooting things that can't shoot up. Vindicator's going to be bombing out pretty much all of the Riptides. And without significant, you know, hydrofoil support, it's just... It's basically impossible for Zokker to do anything in that situation. It's one thing if you have anti-air of some sort, but when you just have no anti-air against Vindicators, I mean, you could have the best micro in the world, but it doesn't even matter. And game number 3 goes to Vindies. Fire Island going to be favoring Vindies in the end there. And that means that with those 2 games plus his 1 point advantage, it is now match point for Vindies. Zokker needs to turn it around, and this is going to be his last chance. Can he take it to the next couple of games? He's currently only got that 1 point against the 3 of Vindies, and game number 4 could be the final one. Can Zokker make it happen? Which takes us to Temple Prime, and in the 9 o'clock position, on the left side of the island, our Cyan allied player, representing, again, I think TNG and himself. He needs your cheers. Can he do it? This is Zokker. He wants another tournament victory, but on the right side, the guy who's been looking in fantastic shape, our yellow allied player representing teammates, looking for his own tournament victory. This is Vindies. Fordell snubbed him out of For the Win number 29, and Vindies, he wants that premier 1v1 tournament victory in 2015. I believe he had one in 2014, although he may have gone the whole year without actually winning anything. It may have been 2013 that I'm thinking of. He did win a 2v2 tournament, and wow! Somehow Zokker, he's like the clever king of killing engineers. I don't know how he always manages to do it. And Vindies is apparently the guy who doesn't care about his engineers, which normally he's the guy who cares about his engineers a lot. And Vindies will lose that Peacekeeper. It's a double racks, but there's the sell-off from Zokker, so he doesn't want to commit to this aggression any further, really. He just wants that nice, secure amount of Peacekeepers. He didn't open up fast airfield or anything like that, which sometimes is an option for going to kill off an engineer. And with only Javelin Troopers, Zokker is actually going to have a little bit of free reign until the Riptides come out, which, of course, Riptides are the next step in the plan for Vindies. He needs those Riptides. He needs the anti-infantry to deal with all of these Peacekeepers. Looks like about 11, 12, maybe even 14 in total. Actually, I guess it's like 18 in total for Zokker. A lot of them are actually in the base here. And Zokker, he's got the dog there, going to be running guard, running point for this group of friends. But the Riptides, they're what shake things up. Laser lock can be an effective way of dealing with the buildings. Sometimes if the Peacekeepers are targeting down the Javelin Trooper, it doesn't quite work. But as long as the Riptides are here, running guard for the Javelin Troopers, it should be fine. Airfield now down, and of course, this many Peacekeepers, you can tear through buildings pretty darn quickly. Loses the Vindicator, though, which means he needs to get some value out of this. Vindies reblocks with walls, and of course, that means Zokker can't actually shoot down that structure. That refinery will remain at half health, and now there's going to be the laser lock, and as you can see, 2 Javelin Troopers do go down. A third, I guess, did die, and a fourth goes down as well, but there is going to be the laser lock when you've got that many Javelin Troopers. Even if you've got a couple of them that go down, the Peacekeepers will not stand in the building. The building does go down. Of course, Javelin Troopers inside of the Riptides ACV can indeed be utilized a little bit later. Vindies needs to make sure that he gets repairs, which is why I looked over at the Naval Yard just to make sure that he kept that around. He needs to make sure that he gets repairs on those Riptides. Moves up to the high ground. Is going to be taking himself a third refinery relatively soon. And then, of course, this high ground, a lot of people don't like it. Javelin Troopers up here on the high ground are an absolute pain to deal with that third refinery. Oil Derrick does still lend a bit of an advantage to Zokker. And Zokker, he's moved his MCV a little bit north. He's going to be going for the water expansion himself instead of going to the middle of the map to try to contend that. Riptide's still running around, and of course, Riptide's going to be pretty good out on the water with their little torpedoes. They can shoot down prospectors relatively quickly. They can eliminate refineries without too much trouble. Barracks going down directly onto the potential front line, although it is the middle of the map. Presently, Zokker doesn't have a whole lot here. His only really vested interest is this one structure in the middle, but there's going to be the third refinery of Zokker, a little bit slower in comparison to the third of Vindies. And Zokker, he's got himself out his own Riptides. He's going to be matching the forces of Vindies in that way. And now Vindies, he's got his own airfield, which... Wait a second, did Zokker... He actually sold off his airfield. Oh yeah, because he lost his only Vindicator. And then after that, he's like, well, I'd rather have the 500 credits cash back and get my Naval Yard out for some other units than try to, reproduce those Vindicators now that I'm immediately down one. Unfortunately, these 2 Javelin Troopers have to laser lock down the wall, which buys a little bit of time for Vindies to get his Cryocopters here, to get his Riptides here. There's a shrink of 1, and Vindies, he has overwhelming numbers anyways, and with the Cryocopter, that just adds insult to injury. It makes it that much more difficult. A nice roar does happen there, but again, if you don't really have anything to kill off those Javelin Troopers, then what does the roar actually matter? The Cryocopter making this difficult engagement basically impossible. I don't want to say it was absolutely impossible, but that Cryocopter from Vindies swinging things so heavily into his favor that even with 4 Riptides versus 3, which is already a numeric advantage for Vindies, suddenly swings so much further into his favor. 5 more Riptides out on the field and a 4 refinery economy. Of course, with that Oil Derrick, that just pushes the advantage even more into the favor of Zokker. But he's not that much further into the favor. I mean, he's only got that 1 refinery, and technically, Vindies' 3rd refinery was up a fair bit earlier. So overall, he's probably still harvested just a few more resources, although the longer this 4th refinery is allowed to stick around, the better things are going to be for Zokker. Losing the Oil Derrick is a bit annoying as well. And Zokker, what is his plan to actually continue on into the rest of this game? Ooh. Zokker, his plan was to harass this Harvester and hopefully do some damage with a nice cryo shot, but instead that got shut down. Nice awareness by Vindies, not going to let that happen. So it's into a lot of Apollos, 4 Apollos specifically, to try to lock down the entire air force of Vindies. But we're not really seeing that, like, tier 2 tech up from Zokker. Is he actually just gonna turret push? I mean, from here, he's maybe a little bit behind in some ways. Well, in the tech way, that's really the big way that he's behind as far as... Oh. Huh. You know, Vindies might actually be going full troll mode. He might actually be going for super weapons, which would be a little bit silly. It would be a little bit silly. He is ahead, of course, pretty far in the tech. Apollo's going to be sacrificing themselves, trying to take down the cryocopters, and cryocopters are so tanky that he doesn't actually get one. Wait a second. Okay, yeah, no, that definitely wasn't around when I looked at that. But there is going to be the last hurrah. Even grabs a... Oh, Vindies. Oh, Vindies. Adding insult to injury, the use of spies, making that already difficult engagement that much more one-sided. He gets both super weapons, and even if you're not super familiar with Red Alert 3, that's a huge investment that Vindies just made into things that he can't use for at least 3 or 6 minutes. He just spent a lot of money getting structures that are actually completely useless for the first couple of minutes of their life because he's so confident he doesn't need to spend that money on anything else. And in this case, he may be right. This is still a scary amount of infantry, and Zokker still has his MCV. He still has his turret as he drops it right there, and he cleans up a couple of these Riptides on the left side. Now, of course, keep in mind that Zokker is extremely low when it comes to eco, and, of course, dealing with these cryocopters is going to be difficult. Maybe not impossible, but dare I say, very, very difficult. I'm upgrading it from just difficult to very, very difficult, guys. This is unparalleled commentary that has never been witnessed ever before. There's the pull of the cryocopters, and of course, when you've only got Javelin Troopers, it doesn't take that many Peacekeepers to just shut this down. The hopes of Zokker dwindle further and further until he taps out, and Vindies takes for the win number 31. He'll take himself $30 of that prize. Zokker gets himself 15 earned for that second place finish. And we did have a random draw. As it turns out, Yui was the one who won that random draw, so he'll get $15 as well. And a GG, well played to both of these guys, but a big congratulations. Put your hands together for Mates Vindies. Takes himself yet another tournament. And as if I recall, yeah, because this is his first Premier 1v1 2015 win. And Zokker, better luck next time. Wasn't quite able to make it happen. I guess not enough turret pushes. Maybe too many turret pushes. At any rate, Zokker again playing pretty darn well. Maybe not up to his top form, but Vindies certainly deserving this tournament win. The best player in the tournament. Probably. I mean, maybe not. Maybe there's like a way that if a different player actually gets through to the finals that Vindies doesn't actually win. But very well played overall. That will do it. Thank you all very much for watching. Pretty explosive AVA finals, and that'll do it for the Win 31 wrapped. Of course, keep your eye on red3.org. More tournament action virtually all the time. Going to be coming your way. Thank you all once again for watching. This is Sybert, signing out.